created my own little algorithms to do one thing or another, like disease states, a mortality algorithm, and
I think you will have a whole levels of robotics, that humanoid robots or non-humanoid robots, whatever the case is.
But the one that I really gravitated towards was Alteryx, low code, no code, business intelligence stuff, data science, machine learning, things like that.
Audio, the text, and then there's big metaverse buzz. Everybody knows the metaverse.
Another week of AI.
We have AI going through everybody's ears right now. It's probably shaking Vaughn's head like, what is
welcome.
This? I like it.
Well, another episode of
Ay.
There you go. Good to have Lucky back.
Welcome, Vaughn.
But I've been really getting a fan of Masako's AI. Come on.
I like it.
I think mine is more of a yodel. Or maybe it's a native call. You know, I got that blood.
I see it now. I see it. Bobby, what's your background? Show us.
I was born on the river. No.
On the river.
See, if I have to do it correctly, I have to do like, because you know that's how we say we screwed up.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we did. You know, it's my fault, but the thing is, you know, we have lots of technical talk, right? I do technical talking all the time, and Lucky's there to kind of leash me back in. Masako's there to leash me back in. Like, hey, it's a lot of technical talk, but we're really going to have to talk business today. No technical, right? Business. However, I want to throw in some technical information just so that the audience can kind of feel like, you know, I never heard of it, but I'm curious now. I want to find that out, right? It's a little bit of technical detail. So I'm going to leash myself a little bit, right? I'm going to talk a little bit less technical, but let's talk more business, because we have somebody who's just of course, Masako is the business guru, but we literally have somebody who's Masako's good friend, and you know, somebody who has a lot of business experience, a military veteran. She's going to join us to say like, hey, what are you guys are talking about? What is this large language model? How can business use this? What happens to the future of business process, and what is it like to do business optimization using large language model? So you keep hearing large language model. If you're not familiar with it, it's because it's AI. It's just what ChatGPT is, but ChatGPT is not called large language model. So today's discussion is about, you know, I'm a project manager, and what's in it for me to know about large language model. And when we talk about project managers, we sort of identify them as that meat in the sandwich, right? Whatever's going on, these project managers are the ones that, you know, handling everything downstream and upstream, right? So I'll pause there. Let's go around and get everybody's thought in it, because we're getting ready to talk some business and learn some business, but around large language models. Lucky?
Yeah. Well, kind of not trying to get too much in the technical and trying to stay, you know, on the surface is, you know, there's a lot of opportunity for the layman to persons that are not involved with the development or production of a large language model to take advantage of what a large language model can do for you. You know, what are the benefits? You know, when you're in different, you know, you have different roles, and one is knowledge management. You know, that how do you manage your data, and that data, how do you feed it into a model? Without getting into that, you can take advantage of areas like, for example, safety. There's going to be a lot of safety documentation. There's going to be a lot of processes. There's going to be regulations. A lot of that data sometimes is not ready, available, and you may have people that you're bringing into the industry or people that you got to explain things to, and a lot of terms aren't readily available, and then it's easier to develop a database that has a lot of that data for you that you can just feed to customers, and it's not super techy, but at the end you end up speaking to the customer when you're not able to, and so maybe that can be yeah, another representation of your organization says, hey, as we go down this road, I'll be there for you. But if we don't, we have Jarvis or, a form of something that can help lead you down the road that's specific to your organization and you can customize that. And so there's opportunity to build solutions for your customers where you don't have to be there every second. Because I know sometimes you want to go on vacation. You want to be able to do more with your time, and be able to still develop and give people what they need. And a large language model that feeds off of what whatever your business provides as far as training, safety, that can be vetted through a model, and you have yourself a new best friend. And so maybe we can talk about that. How do we start to kind of get to that area? What is a large language model, first of all? And we can kind of define that today, and what knowledge management is. Bobby, he's big into, what I can't fill in, he'll fill the gaps in because, he has a lot of experience in those areas, being able to say, hey, okay, you have your, you have different ways of providing services. Is that a realistic way? Can AI help you do it better? So we'll have a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Masako, I know you're ready. You're just so excited to introduce your friend right now.
Yeah, so you know what? I'm lucky enough to have the opportunity to sit with all of you geniuses, and you're all geniuses in your own right, because each of you carry a flame within that, gets you up in the morning, and you show up each day serving the community that is nearest and dearest to your heart, in the category of which you are a subject matter expert in. And so I get the opportunity to introduce my good friend Vaughn today. I call her the OG. And she's the OG because her mindset is boss. She is an original individual that recognizes what you can get with hard work, however, does smart work. And that's why I call her the OG. She does smart work, and she does it across the globe. And not only is she doing it for herself and her many organizations, the organizations that she runs sows into so many people's lives, giving them an opportunity to, leverage their knowledge for them to, have a change of trajectory if something happened, right? Oftentimes things happen in people's lives. And if you don't have a mentor, if you don't have someone to hold the mirror to you and say, you know what, that may have happened to you, but that's not who you are. And so for that, she's an OG because she sees people with her heart. She looks into their heart, and then she puts them in position. I always say, we help people leverage their knowledge so they can be spiritually, physically, and mentally wealthy.
Yeah.
When you could show people how to capitalize and maximize their unique gifts and talents within them for them to live their best life, to me, that's an OG. And that's Vaughn Griggs.
That's
to me.
That's a superpower right there.
Yeah.
That is absolutely amazing. I'm so glad to meet you, Vaughn. The ability to help people transform their lives or level up is really a blessing, right? Because you are blessed by watching people grow. It's like an opportunity, right? Rare opportunity in life to watch people grow. And both in what you do and how you do it, it's a matter of what tools. So when communicating with people verbally, you have different ways you lead them through various situations to find a better version of themselves, or to increase whatever it is they would like to increase, or make better whatever it is they would like to make better. And AI is no different. It is a tool in your toolbox that can help you do those wonderful things you do better, faster, a little bit more efficient. So I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to communicate. Everyone out there has different knowledge, skills, and abilities, or the KSAs as we call them. And I would encourage all of you to look into AI as being the way to really magnify what those things are and to rapidly get to the answers that you're looking for in this world.
Yeah. So we have a large language model that has really caught people's attention, right? I don't want to say caught off guard because that's not necessarily how I see it. Because large language models has been developing since '80s, right? It's just that we don't call it large language model; we just call it something else. And it was processed very slowly, and it grew over time. So the attention that it's receiving right now from the business community is massive, but I wish it was just contained within the business community. It's not. This is not something business only related. This is actually a societal piece that we really have to capture. But I know we're going to jump into talking to Vaughn about her business and her information. But I want to kind of point out, me and Bobby, we used to debrief each other about the Star Trek episodes.
Oh.
About 9-10 years ago, we used to watch the Star Trek shows, and we was like, "Hey, man, what do you think about that episode?" And believe it or not, the premise, it had multiple premises in the whole season of that Star Trek, where the most fascinating one was how they did the traveling. Right, the traveling was done through mycelium, which is a fungi from the earth, and mycelium will stream through your blood, and then you travel because of mycelium. But the unknown piece that was already described based on large language model was this bag of knowledge, right? And the bag of knowledge was hardware agnostic. Didn't matter what hardware it was, didn't matter what software it was, didn't matter who was using it. So it was a bag of knowledge that if the wrong person gets their hands on, it will turn the whole universe into something else. So guess how you hide that bag of knowledge? You do time travel. You travel throughout the pockets of time to keep that bag of knowledge away from the bad guys. And there's only a sole caregiver of that knowledge. I don't want to ruin the whole thing. There's a whole lot of things going on in Star Trek. But if you want to kind of say, where have I seen large language model before? Well, the first thing I think of is Star Trek season, not last two seasons, but season before that in CBS, right? I think it's only on CBS app. It's not actually on CBS. So I kind of want to set the stage that way, because what we're talking about, this large language model and KM, the knowledge management piece of it, I want to set the stage for the business specific purposes, because when it comes to large language model, you have a spectrum of topics that you can go down in, right? But if you think about it from the knowledge management perspective, it sets a little bit more sense to, okay, what is the actual value of large language model? Because Lucky implied that earlier about safety, onboarding, right? There was this like low-hanging fruit cases. Did I just say that? I said low-hanging fruit use cases. And you have these ability to target these as a stepping stone. But once you get to the core, again, remember that Star Trek scenario, the bag of knowledge had to be hidden from the wrong person. And that wrong person doesn't mean from somebody from outside, but also from inside, because that bag of knowledge gives away a whole lot once a person gets a malicious intent. We can talk about cybersecurity here all day long, but it's your knowledge, right? And in this day and age, we can kind of look at it from an IP perspective, right? Intellectual property perspective. It's actually beyond that. This is your business process. This is your customer's information. This is your HIPAA. This is your credit card information. This is all sorts of information that is stored around these large language models, right? And it's sensitive enough to the point that we still don't know how to protect it properly, right? But we don't want to go down the rabbit hole of Star Trek, where somebody has to take ownership of the whole large language model and fly time to time. It's a fascinating season if you're interested in watching Star Trek, because what they're describing is literally what large language model (LLM) is, and it's just that they represented it as a KM, which is that they're managing this knowledge. So these knowledge is something very destructive, something more powerful, something that can build civilization, something that can also ruin the civilization, right? Um, so when we come back after Bobby and Masako does a intro to Vaughn and talk to Vaughn, we'll take her lead and discuss more of the business use cases. But Vaughn, welcome to our IIIAI.
Oh, so we lost you again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we lost the voice.
Having a few technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if we had a large language model that was sophisticated enough, it will read her lips and will be voicing it out using Michael Jackson's voice or something, or my favorite is always Samuel L. Jackson.
Samuel Jackson. No.
So Vaughn, let's try that troubleshooting one more time and see if the audio comes back. I'm so sorry. I apologize. I didn't expect this to happen today. But that's what's happening with large language model, actually, right? It's doing it's able to do ASL signs using large language model, and turn that ASL into real time sign to speech, right? Voice, audio. It's doing real time language translation, right? So a whole lot of things that are happening right now. It's allowed to have all these capabilities because of large language model. But there's a whole other discussion that Bobby can have, which is that if you don't have latency, you're not going to use it, right? You don't want to talk to somebody who doesn't talk back right away, right? And it's like, oh, give me 5 minutes, I'll get back to you. Well, that's how it was back in 1980s, right? In 2025, since ChatGPT has been around, it's gone up through the roof, right? The use cases. So let's try Vaughn one more time. Let's see if Vaughn is. How's the audio? No audio.
No audio. Well,
go ahead, Lucky.
I'll say let's have her try it once more. Let close all her browsers and then we can just talk a little bit as she does that. Vaughn, can you try it once more? Close all your browsers and try to reconnect and I wanted to be able to take a moment and say, a lot of what we do here is, we do try to educate, help people understand what AI could possibly do for them. But before we do that, as Vaughn goes in and out trying to troubleshoot this, I want to take the time to say, hey, thank you to all our military veterans, all the U.S. veterans out there. She's got a lot of time, 33 years doing what she's been doing. Also, she's spent time supporting us through the U.S. Air Force, and we have other people here that have also been in the armed forces. And we want to thank you all for your service. We want to thank you for stepping up and, making a difference in our lives as Americans. I want to thank you all. And so again, thank you all for being veterans, and I just want to take a moment to thank you for your service. We do a lot here on this channel to support veterans, and we're veteran centric. And Asif, Bobby, thank you. And we continue to bring people on that are
Masako as well. Masako is veteran too.
And Masako.
Yeah.
I'm the outlier. I've just supported the government agencies my whole life. But then thank you again for your service. And as we get this corrected, we'll get this worked out. The little technical issues, but we are a veteran centric. At least III supports veterans, and we keep bringing them on because that's our focus. And so as we bring her on and get this troubleshot, we'll get this worked out. But thank you again.
Oh,
Uh, thank you, sir. This is very
Yeah,
kind of you.
thank you. You know, it's interesting with regard to large language models and knowledge models. Being a veteran, right? It's like, you know, you learn something new every day or every station, or you know, whatever you need to, right? We're constantly learning, and I feel like even as civilians, right? We're always in a state of learning, because the moment we stop learning, it's kaput, it's a wrap, right? There's no more breath in our lungs.
right.
So it's our calling as human beings, as parents, as visionaries, as leaders, to continuously learn, to remove the barrier from one's own mind that says, oh, that's hard, or oh, I don't know what that is, I've never seen that before. To show up with, yes, let's see what this is. It's new,
Mm-hmm.
but you know, I'm a quick study. And how can I use it to be my next best self? And I feel like that's how each of us need to show up in our lives daily. What is our next best move to live our next best life? And you know, currently AI is that space. How are we leveraging the knowledge
Yes.
that we have in order to live our next best life? And you know, it's no secret to you guys, I'm very passionate about the parent, because the parent has to continuously learn. The parent is a leader in their home, they manage their household. Their children are looking to them on, you know, how to lead. So as a parent, we have to constantly be in a state of open, curious learning, because our children are learning from us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, a good area to kind of cover is okay. We can talk about until we get her back on, or if we have technical difficulties, we can work out a different angle. But one thing to consider is the layman's as they walk in, people that are looking at AI, they're trying to figure out how do I make or how do I add AI and augment myself? How does AI help me develop new ways of reaching out, or how if I had an MOS, as I was if I was a tank mechanic, how do I make AI? How do I leverage AI to help me grow? And I was having this conversation today with a few of the people at the office, and there's different ways of looking at AI, but there's a couple of different ways. There's AI, there's open AI, open source, and there's closed source AI. Which model, which one would work better for individuals that are trying to you know bring out better or provide information that they have and be able to feed it out to others. And a lot of the and you, Bobby, you let me know what you think. But a lot of the closed, open source, closed source, the closed source are more like a black box. If you want to try to feed into it, you don't really know if that data is actually going to be available. So at that point, do you start to look at maybe an open source model and say, I can actually put more into an open source versus a closed source model? And how do I get my services out there? So, we had this discussion. I really believe that going with the typical chat GPTs, or, Groks of the world, are more for individuals that are just trying to figure out or learn. But if you want to build a model after yourself, you want to build a bias in it, and usually that's a bad thing. But for in the case of Vaughn, where she has a very specific area that she's trying to improve, I would recommend that she start to look at open source models that she can actually feed into it from things that emails or documents she's produced, conversations that she's had with people, and train the model to be more like what she would respond to, as opposed to something that's open source that would just give you, the at least the Wikipedia version of what safety is, as opposed to what she would see safety would be, a personalized touch. So how do you get to that personalized touch?
Well, in that space, I think it's important for everybody to understand that just like in your real current world jobs that you're doing, there is some type of governance, right? What's your authoritative documents? What says or what defines what it is that you do and what's good in that field and what's bad in that field. If you're using the general purpose model and taking in the world, garbage in, garbage out. However, if you are using a sample data or a piece of data or data sets that relates specifically to a specific area of expertise, then that's where the money's at for you, right?
Mhm.
Taking that and then basically consolidating it and pulling out those key things you need to know, whatever they may be, for your business. So if I was a cook or I owned the restaurant and I had used the model about to find recipes, well, I can get recipes from all over the world, and they may not be quite as tasty as I think. But if I owned a little chicken shack and I had only a few herbs and spices to work with, now I got a formula that I can now go out and have a strategic advantage with, right? So it is all about the data that you're looking at and its relevance to the field of study or the area of interest that you're talking about. So AI, again, in this instance, it aids you as a tool, but it doesn't replace your core knowledge of this is what I want to know, and this is the field I want to know about, and these are the regulations or the policies or the source documents that I need to analyze very quickly compared to my competitors. If you are a person into supply chain, depends on how deep you want to go in the supply chain and where you sit in the supply chain. If you're at the wholesale retail edge, you want to know where all the suppliers located and how long does it take on average to get into your warehouse. You might want to know what the stockages is. If you in the supply chain produce something, whatever it is you produce, if it doesn't require farmers or does it require pre-manufacturing and you do assembly, what is the lead times? How much are you able to contract for at any given period of time? And where do they get their stuff from? So that if there's a natural disaster somewhere, does that affect your business? Knowing that before everyone else and buying up all the stock that's available could be a strategic advantage. So.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Masako. I see you smiling, Masako.
Well, it just goes back to that language, right? If you understand the language, you can speak the language, and so you know where to go to look and have a conversation. And that's essentially, I feel like, why we're here every other week, having a conversation for whomever is tuning in to understand that you can learn the language.
Yeah.
It is truly simple to learn the language. You just have to have a level of curiosity. It's like, you know what, I want to know that, or how do I do this or that, like all of the fields, financial fields, the health field, cooking, parenting, mathematics, whatever your field may be. And then I'm really thinking about what Lucky was asking when he said, like open source versus closed source. As a business owner and someone that's developing something that's unique, and then when it comes to HIPAA laws and you want to make sure you don't have any HIPAA violations. For me, I feel like that I would want a closed source because I'm feeding this language model the data that I'm collecting. And so this will be unique to our organization and will maintain a degree of confidentiality with regard to the people and the unique situations that we serve, versus open source, like the things that you would find on the internet that is not unique to you. The good news is about that is it's like having a dinner party with all of these brains from all over the galaxy throughout history, right? It's over a trillion words, trillions of words within this large language model that you could really become an expert with the things that you are interested in, and then put your own twist on it, because no one is a you. So whatever your secret sauce is, get all of that knowledge that's already been shared throughout the galaxies throughout our time, and then put your unique twist on it and really become great on purpose. And so that's what I laugh at, because I'm always
Mhm.
in a state of, okay, what's next? What's next? What am I
Yeah.
doing next? What am I doing next? What's my next move? I've that's what keeps me up at night. You know, it's like, what am I doing
Well,
next?
right, you're absolutely right. And this and the 'cause what there's always a thing when you're a young kid, you hear a rumor and somebody will say, consider the source, right? So the real question is, what is the source of your information? Um, and that quality is essential as far as being able to have a real strategic advantage. The disadvantage of a lot of many of the large models are there's so much stuff out there that is not only derivative in nature, a lot of it is incorrect, or a lot of it is outdated, or a lot of it uh, is truly what in a state of what we call data violation, which means it is now feeding upon itself, right?
Mm,
Data that creates a result and then feeds upon that result as fact, problematic, right? So the sources that you use and the sources that you use need to hold the same standard that they do now. So your subject matter expertise in whatever your field is essential. There is no version where a version of life at this point where AI alone can do what you do better without someone validating the data sources, validating the timeliness of the data. So for many of you, you may have heard a term of data being stale or information being stale. It was relevant last week, but what about now? So to get that timely information out, you got to make sure what you took in was timely. Other than that, you're getting a fast, bad answer. So
yeah. Yeah, you still have to do your due diligence and check the sources. You know, you can't rely on it like it's law. You know, you got to use multiple sources and consider what you're using it for. Especially like
mhm,
if you're doing your own thing. These are it's just buckets of knowledge, right?
that's yes,
Yeah,
yes.
if you can imagine someone that's really good at what they do, like Vaughn, she's really good at safety. Okay, and now she has a business. She has multiple employees. Now, there's no way that you could replace a Vaughn, but you could create, and we've talked about this, but this is a different form of digital twin. But you could create a twin of what how Vaughn would respond. Because you remember that old thing in high school where they took four people out of the classroom, and then the teacher said, "Okay, I'm gonna give you a scenario, and I want you to tell. We're gonna bring one person in, and we're gonna give them the scenario, and then we're gonna let that person tell one of the other students outside. And by the end of the fourth person, the whatever the scenario is, they've it's not anything what it originally was. Word of mouth, like train the trainer. Back in the day, it was like, hey, train the trainer. You know, make sure that we all help each other out. But there's a loss of data there. Okay, there's always going to be a little bit of a loss there between one person and another. But if you have a digital twin, a constant large language model that's taken all your data, that's taken all your emails, that knows who you are, how you would respond to a safety issue, and say, hey, this is how I would respond. And then have that digital twin and then have all your staff. Now it's more like at that point, it's a hub and spoke. Vaughn is still there providing the true background of who she is and how she has that secret sauce answer for everyone else. And then they're not having to depend on word of mouth or passing on bad information. At that point, Vaughn is there, but not there because she's able to train a model with her bias, the way she sees the world, and that model interprets it that way also. That's I think that's the future of decentralized, small or not small, but large, not large language models, but of course we call them that, but more personalized models that would have a digital Vaughn available for all her staff any time of the day, 2 a.m., 5 a.m., 9 a.m., midnight, whatever the case may be. Vaughn doesn't have to be there because she's trained a model to represent her. I think that's a fantastic way of, at some point, we'll get there. It's right now, the thread is back in the day, they said, what was the number, Asif? 85% of all AI projects fail uh, for many reasons. But nowadays things are a little bit easier. I'll be honest with you. With large language models
Fail
like
faster.
Llama, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You fail faster, and
Yeah.
you learn from it, and you just keep getting better at it.
Yeah, but I think the newer large language models enable people like Llama to start to kind of have more success than failures. And we just have to learn how to take advantage of the technology. It's not as scary as it used to be. 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, Bobby and I, we were all talking. It was just, hey, look, okay, how do you develop a large language model or how do you develop an AI? Well, first is data. What kind of data do you have? How good is the data? Is the data clean? Those were the things. Now, with large language models, you have to just train it, and then you start to have something that's proven quicker, and
Yeah.
you get to that point faster than back in the day. So we have improved our technologies. Now we need to have people take advantage of what these offerings are. And so, Vaughn, are you back? Do we have Mike? No. It's okay.
But we also have the chat as well, so we can take comments from the chat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, one of the things that Lucky has been describing, and Bobby, you hit on it. But if you take that food example and you just amplify that, right? Just take that cooking, the chef, people ordering food. If you just look at that process, somebody walks in, gets the food, gets the menu, orders the food is delivered, and then they eat, and then they move on with the life, right? If you just think about that, how many ways can large language model help with that, right? Um, so let's run through a scenario here. The scenario is if you have large language model that does everything in the universe, but now you have an SLM, a small language model, or an expertise, or as John would put it, an agentic AI, right? Um, in between the steps of all things, you have a large language model. So let's do something that we always do in this podcast, which is to talk about the labeling, how labeling goes wrong, and labeling is what disrupts everything. So when you said like 85% fails, well, that's because somebody didn't see through all the operations and how to label things correctly. That's a major deficiency in everything in the project. And then if it comes to especially AI and large language model, labeling matters like unbelievably, right? So when we're talking about, let me open up my private chats here. So when you're talking about something that is as small as a restaurant, how can a small language model, a expert language or MCP or agentic AI, how can they help, right? So if you look at any business process, they all have just three steps. You look for demand signal, you process that demand signal, and you deliver that demand signal. If you deliver, somebody pays you. If you don't find the demand signal, you have no business. You don't process anything. You don't deliver anything. But if you deliver it, that demand signal processed very well, and people pay you for it, and they come back and do it all over again. It creates a feedback loop, right? You don't have to keep looking for demand signal because you already know the demand signal. You're addressing it. You're operationalizing it. So if you look at it from the large language model perspective, and this is important that I tell to everybody, the reason you don't do many things today is because the technology is so limited. But because of large language model, now you have to think, okay, no matter what size business I am, I should be able to do all sorts of things that I haven't previously thought about at all, right? Because small, medium, large enterprise, government, services, whatever you want to call it, they all have these three steps: demand signal processing, and deliver on that demand signal, right? Large language model allows you to expand all sorts of capability within those three steps, right? So if you're looking for marketing to find those demand signals, of course, everybody knows how large language model and AI is so effective on that, right? And then if you have business process, all of a sudden you're looking at your business process and like, well, hold on a second. My competition spends about, let's just pull a number out, like $100 on their operations. Their OpEx is $100. because of large language model, my large language model enables me to do operations for $80, $50, right? So whatever I do deliver as a demand signal sales, I have, same amount of customers, but I'm taking more home, right? My competition is not really realizing that I'm not cutting anybody. I'm selling it for the same price. But think about it. Large language model enables you to do more marketing, capture a bigger market segment, and do your operations for less and sell more for lower prices, right? So large language model all of a sudden enables you to do things that previously as a business owner we said like, well, we wouldn't do that because technically that will cost a lot more. And if it costs a lot more, I'm not going to do that, right? So with large language model, and here's another kicker, large language model, people are obsessed with the low code, no code, right? I think that's where every consultant that I talk to or every group that I've been part of, they all are just super excited about this low code, no code, right? They're saying like, okay, large language model, it allows me to do what now? Oh, wow. So I can do low code, no code all day long. Because agentic AI can do that. Agentic AI can write the codes on your behalf all the time and continuously do so. If you think about the large language model, what it can do beyond low code, no code is what I want to get to. This is a knowledge management piece of it, because that does not require you to be so technical with things anymore, right? Because even in low code, no code, you have to kind of get technical with things. You're like, well, hold on a second. If I write this code, what do I do next? Like, I have a bunch of codes here. What do I do next, right? And that's the problem with every business, because not everybody in a business is going to be say, I know how to copy and paste it, right? That's not the case with all the businesses. But in all businesses, if you look at it, a large language model that's hitting on that knowledge management piece, it says easy as 1, 2, 3, right? If you can understand there's a knowledge management, and I talk to Bobby about this all the time, if you have archived records, if you have some sort of record management in your business, if you archive your data somewhere, if you just keep away your 5-year-old data, 10-year-old data, last month's data that you somewhat say, you know what, I just junk it. I kind of just put it there in case IRS calls. Gold mined, right? Gold mine, like literally gold mine of everything that your competition is not doing, everything that not a lot of people are paying attention to. You have a gold mine where you can use a large language model to tap into that repository of data, right? Call it record management. We call it record management government, but archive data mainly, right? Data that you're not using. I mean, if you're a small solopreneur that's using a laptop to run a business, your desktop is filled with archive data and you have no idea whose email address you have in there, whose phone number you might have in there, or just that one sale you did that you never invoiced, right? Big businesses does it all the time. They audit information all the time through the audit process.
So how do they know? How do they know what they have? How do they know what they have if they don't know what they have and they have all of this?
So this is the context piece of it, right? Because a large language model is not necessarily looking for information that you have as far as curiosity in the back of your head. It's looking for information that it can structure. And if it can structure, say, 100% of your data, you're a winner. But if it can structure 98% of the data and 2%, you look at it like, I can fix that myself because I know maybe there isn't something there, but now we're 100% structured, right? So a large language model,
give us an example. I want to break it up for a moment. I want a real life scenario of someone they've been running their business for 15 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. If you look at
hard drive, they have all these documents, their SOPs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. They've so moved on from that. Right.
Yeah.
They're in their 15th year. So are you saying that give a real world example of how somebody can upgrade their systems, shorten their time on their work day with all of this information that they have gathered throughout the life of their business to duplicate themselves, to create an agent? Give us some real world scenarios with the 15-year-old business owner.
Mm-hmm. I'll take 2 steps.
15-year-old solopreneur.
Yeah. Making it better, right? Some 15-year soloprenneurship, and then all of a sudden you have 15 years to go. We'll just play with that scenario. But let's go with Lucky. I wanna with two scenarios, but Lucky, you can go ahead first.
Yeah, no. Well, I'll just give you an experience. Okay, I'm getting older. All right, there's things that I want to do, and there's things that I wanted to do, and things that I used to do well, and now I don't want to do any of that stuff anymore. And so I'll give you an example. We'll just say a doctor's office has a lot of, and I'm not going to go into any specific field, but I've been working for 15 years. I have a good practice, but I have a certain way that I do things, right? And there's a lot of documents that I have, HIPAA related, that are private. And another concern for me is privacy. I wouldn't want my data to be managed by a closed source uh, AI, because it's a black box. I don't know what's going in and what's going out, or how it's, if it's using RAG to go gather information from the internet and bring it back in, and somehow it's poisoned my data. I would want to have something that I have control over. So then I would want to go with something that's open source. That open source AI, I've trained it now. And so there's things that I don't want to do. Like, say, for example, when somebody comes in and fills out a form, and that form, and then you can have that online now, and then that form feeds into your AI, and then it sends that person messages saying, hey, instead of having to have someone schedule, the person can schedule with the AI specifically, and then that AI arranges that data to say, okay, this person's, according to who they are and their, and previous information, we can now customize how we treat that person. And then I don't have to sit there and tell people, hey, because of this person, the way their mortality, morbidities, we want to have this, we want to follow these guidelines to work with these people. And AI is a good way to start to build that for your practice, specifically for your practice. And then you have privacy. That's something that right now in the US, we don't really focus in a lot on privacy. That says, hey, okay, we're going to protect your data, and if something happens, we're going to send in the National Guard, or we're going to send in, we're going to, there's no arm that says, hey, so you have to take the onus on your own. Say, how do I protect my data? Well, going with the black box is not the way to go. You want to be able to look and say, okay, I'm going to take ownership of it. So how do I do that? And then how do I create a repeatable process and something that someone else can use, and I don't have to be there. I don't have to always be there. That's the thing. Is I'll give an example. Would be, you want to do better things with your time. And
Mhm.
how do you free yourself from that? Is to start to develop a model that's specific to you. And I know that's hard to do right now, because it seems like AI is this weird mathematical statistical thing that's
It's not.
I wouldn't be able to ever understand. But you can start to build slow. And I think that you have to learn. And so um, leveraging open AI I think is a key. I don't see, I don't see myself going down. If I'm a small business, I
Mhm.
don't have the resources. So one thing is closed AI. They use these big servers in the cloud, and you have a lot of silicon, a lot of processing to be able to manage that solution. Where if you had something that was open source, you can install it on a small mini PC. As long as you got 100 gigs, maybe 200 gigs worth of hard drive space, you can develop your own language model, and you don't have to make that huge investment, because everything's open source. It's free. And so free it sounds really good to the business, the business owner.
Mhm.
Those are tangible things that you can grab onto. If it's free, it's for me, right? I can take and make something. It may be a learning curve, but it's not that big of a jump. And
So
so then
what is the I don't know if anybody ever wants to be called average. With regard to training the model, right? Open source model, training the model to free your time up. How time wise? How long does something like that take on average? If you're working 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 4 to 5 days a week, on average, how long would it take the consultant or whomever to train a model in order to duplicate themselves so they can get outside? Because for me, honestly, guys, sometimes, I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, girl, I am so in love with you. I want to go outside,
Yeah.
I want to go play. I want to go outside and play. So what is that?